Yesterday I recorded a rap titled Wack, Mayne. Wack, Mayne is a song about Bay Area rappers being established and Washington State artists, some of which emulate the Bay Area, California artists. The beat was produced by Cinema, and the description reads, "This rap is about the typical Wanksta rapper from Washington State who has no style of his own, other than to copy and emulate California's Bay Area rappers." That's what I wrote. And then I went on to say, worse than Malibu's most wanted. Wack, Mayne, M-A-Y-N-E. In the Bay Area of California, for those who don't know, there's a saying, Mayne, M-A-Y-N-E, Mayne, like what up, man, Mayne, what's up, man? And in Washington State, you have these fake gangster rappers who, they snarl. They have this little voice that they do. And it's really corny. It's really cornball. Because if you grew up in the Pacific Northwest at any time of your life, like I did, you spent any significant amount of time during a childhood in Washington State, you saw the genesis and the eventual evolution of these kids who didn't have any knowledge of California-based gangs. They didn't know anything about California gangs. And then all of a sudden, over one summer, they've got this voice that they're doing. They're like, yeah, nigga, what's happening? Yeah, nigga, this the 206, nigga. And it's, man, I mean, look, if you see this Jamie Kennedy movie, Malibu's Most Wanted, and then, you know, you go to Washington State, you have to, you know, weigh the two. You're like, wait a second, man, which one depicts the worst Wanksta of all? The worst kind of Wanksta? Washington State outdoes, surpasses, and exceeds anything that you see in Malibu's Most Wanted by Jamie Kennedy. Jamie Kennedy's a funny dude. That guy's hilarious. I mean, he's an incredible, talented actor, rapper, singer, songwriter. But I'll tell you this, in the real world, the type of dude who he characterizes in that movie, the character that he plays, Washington State is beyond the scope of Malibu's Most Wanted. You talk about Wankstas. Look, I've been to almost every state in the United States of America, and I haven't seen Wankstas surpass the Wankstas in Washington State. Now check this out. This song is about Wankstas, dudes who act like gangsters, and they're not gangsters. They're from the suburbs of Seattle. I'm from that area. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Washington State. My clique, my crew, my organization, my team, my street team, my neighborhood, we had the biggest thing going ever in the history of ever Washington, Snohomish County. DIE deep in ever. Talk to anybody in law enforcement. Talk to anybody in government. They'll tell you. Our crew, our fraternity, / sorority, 495 deep in Everett. Come on, man. It's epic history in Snohomish County, Everett, Washington, Western Washington, the Pacific Northwest. Outside of Seattle, you go, look, you go to Seattle, which is just a little tiny city that's like 5 minutes by 5 minutes. You hop on the interstate and you go north for about 10, 15 minutes, depending where you're going to get off in Everett. You're going to get off in South Everett, you're going to get off in North Everett. And you're in an entirely different city, entirely different county. Seattle's King County. Everett's Snohomish County. We ruled Snohomish County. We don't have anything to do with Seattle. Seattle's its own thing. It's like Long Beach, California to San Jose. It's totally different. Totally, it's like Sacramento to Los Angeles. They're totally different cities. And so, you know, I wrote this song. I wrote this rap called Wack, Mayne, Washington State's lamest, most garbage wannabe MCs of all time. And the song is just about some fake-ass Wankstas. Every state got Wankstas. I'm telling you, Washington State got the worst Wankstas. Now, again, listen to what I'm telling you. I've been to almost every state in the United States of America. And Washington State, Seattle, is just a little tiny town. One summer, all of a sudden, these kids from the suburbs. Now, when you talk about the hoods, the ghettos in Seattle, come on, man. What ghetto in Seattle? You talking about the low-income housing area out there as you go out in the Rainier Valley on the right-hand side? Didn't they tear that down? I mean, look, man, it's like you don't have hoods like you have in California, Los Angeles. You've got suburbs, you've got exurbs, you've got these kids who come from these middle-class families, these upper-class families, and then you got some kids that come from, I guess, Seattle's low-income communities, but you don't have neighborhoods in Seattle like you have in Los Angeles, California, or South Central. It's fake. You don't have anything close to that. There's nothing comparable to that. Prove it. Show me some hood in Seattle that looks anything like California's hoods. Seattle's a tiny-ass town, man, by comparison. It's just a tiny-ass town. African Americans represent less than the national average, significantly, considerably less than the national average. African Americans in Seattle. Most of the people in Seattle, Washington, are white people. So you got these white kids who carved this little tiny town out of the mountainside there, and they call it Seattle. And that's it. And then, hey, look, man, there's a few good MCs in Seattle. There's a few good MCs. There's a few talented MCs in Seattle. And, I'm not saying that all the rappers from Seattle are white MCs. You got Hispanic MCs. You have black MCs, Asian MCs. I'm saying Wanksta in terms of anybody and everybody, not just from Seattle. In the state of Washington, I'm talking about every city, okay? If you consider all the different cities in Washington state, the over 300 cities, and you look at the different ethnic populations, the different crews that you got there, the different kids that are on the streets that are telling their stories of having, to be impoverished and all this shit, right? Okay, yeah. Some of those kids, some of them are impoverished. A lot of those kids are just kids from the suburbs faking shit, faking fucking fairy tales and storylines. That's it, man. I've been there. And man, you might not even ever been to the state of Washington. And you just believe the shit that comes up. Hey man, there's some good actors in the state of Washington. I'll tell you that. There's some seriously fucking talented, lion-ass fucking actors in the state of Washington. And if you're not from the state of Washington, then you probably don't know what I'm talking about. Seattle, man, you hear all this shit, all these beats, all this music that sounds all dark and eerie and wicked and sinister, and you're like, ooh, they're talking about the 206, and I hear the dude, he got his voice like this, yeah, the 206, nigga, the 206, the 206 area code. Come on, man. If you're from Everett, Washington, like me, you've been to Seattle a million times. You've been on almost every square centimeter of that town. You know what I mean? And it's like, come on, dude, man, look. You drive into a neighborhood, and it's like one of these hoods where these kids are like, yeah, this is the hood from Seattle. And there's like maybe 15, 20 dudes out on the block. Whoop-de-fucking-do. You go to Chicago, there's like 2,000, you know what I'm saying? Cats out on the block. Seattle, there's like 20 cats, so what? Maybe you got 50. But look, man, in Everett, Washington, to the north of Seattle, you got neighborhoods like we have. You might have 150 cats out on the block. Because a lot of people know how people in Seattle act. So if they have people and their families in the military living in Washington State and they plan to come to Washington State to take up residency, to live there, to do business, a lot of times they just skip over Seattle. They just go to other cities. They go to Linwood, they go to Edmonds, they go to Mount Vernon, they go to Bremerton. Look, man, there's a lot of cool-ass towns in Washington State, and Seattle, by far, is not the coolest one. It's not even close. You probably don't know Seattle like you think you do unless you've been to the state of Washington. I'm telling you, man, I wrote this rap. It's called Wack, Mayne. It's about lame-ass MCs who perpetrate in the state of Washington. It's not about every MC. I mean, I've clearly told you that. But there's this kid, and he writes this, and he says, why you dissing the Northwest, my dude? We have some talent up here. Check us out. Then he names off some artists. I'm looking at one of the artists, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, come on, man. You talking about old boy? Come on, man. I know, dude. Man, man, first and foremost, I didn't say every artist in the state of Washington or every wannabe artist was Wack. So, I wrote back and, you know what I'm saying? I told dude, I'm like, look, man, first and foremost, I'm not talking about every artist in the state of Washington. That's how kids in Washington act. I said, why? I said, man, look, if you do not understand that and you continue to make misinformed comments like you did, you obviously do not know the facts. You must be high. First of all, I did not diss the Northwest. I dissed Wanksta rappers from the Northwest and not every rapper from the Northwest. I wasn't talking about every rapper in Seattle. I wasn't talking about every rapper in the state of Washington. I was talking about Wanksta rappers in the state of Washington. That's the Seattle mentality. That's how people in Seattle, Washington, and surrounding environ, a lot of them operate. They want you to pay homage to some bullshit unit they got, some fake-ass Wanksta wannabe gang unit with some stupid music that nobody in the United States is buying. Nobody's listening to their fucking stupid fucking fairy tales. People tuned out of Seattle a long time ago, and that's why you don't have platinum rappers coming out of the state of Washington like you do California. And California is very close to the state of Washington. California produces multi-platinum artists replaced every single year. Washington State, since what? Sir Mix-a-Lot? Like fucking 50 years ago? You know, 30 years ago, 20 years ago? I'm being facetious in terms of the time, but think about it. It was a long-ass time after Sir Mix-a-Lot went platinum. Nobody in the state of Washington is really fucking paying attention to the fact that people outside the state of Washington, they're just tired of this bullshit from Seattle. People in Seattle, they hype each other up and have each other think that people are buying their albums, but in the greater scheme of things, people ain't really buying the Seattle fucking fairy tale story.